Hi, everyone. Welcome to Healthy Planet Superfood and Healthy Aging PowerPoint and seminar presentation. I'm RoseMarie Pierce, and this day is sponsored by Prairie Naturals. I'm the Education Director and Formulator Senior Technical Advisor for Prairie. I'm really pleased today to be talking to you about healthy aging. First of all, let's take a look at aging in the 21st century. What could we do to change our age? What if it was possible to seem younger than at any age we are? What if it was also possible to gain some of our youth and vigor back, even if we're elderly? And what if the main factors contributing to chronic disease were things we could control? Well, let's take a look at some aging basics and see what could be possible and what's been happening over the last, especially 10 years. Exciting facts and science and research that's showing us what we can do. So aging is really a gradual, continual process of becoming older. But now we know that as this is happening, we are now at largest risk factors for chronic disease. So that is what's really going to affect our aging. Let's take a look at life expectancy, especially in Canada. Now it's 79 years for men and 83 years for women. So life expectancy is increasing, but chronic disease that are non-communicable, in other words, not infections, are increasing. So 80% of adults over 65 have one chronic disease, and 77% of adults of that age have two chronic disease. So we might be increasing the length of time we live, but are we healthier? And actually, we're not. And that's something that can be within our control. Because there are two types of aging: chronological aging, which of course goes by the calendar and the years we've been since we've been born, but then there's biological aging, and biological aging can be measured. Matter of fact, they've done a number of studies to show that individuals do age at different rates. So you could have two twins or a set of twins, and a number of sets of twins, identical twins, have been followed for decades. And it's been found that their biological age is different. So they've done a number of studies showing us that we do have control. Our genes are only 20, at the very most 30% of determining factors. Within biological age, we're looking at the physical and the mental changes and the experiences that are happening over our lifespan. Biological age is also called bioaging. You might see that term. And it's an indicator of how well a person is aging. So now there's some common factors that we look at with age, easily measurable: blood pressure, stride intervals. In other words, how well do we walk? Our height, what kind of health is our bones in? Respiratory cycles. Do we have nice, slow, even breaths? And our vision. So those are easily measurable. But now they have biological age testing or epigenetics. So genetics, remember, it's 20 to 30%, but our epigenetics, our lifestyle factors, contribute to the other 70 to 80%. And we can test these now. They're not yet common where a person can just, put it in a website and find it very easily, but it's coming. Over the next little bit, we'll see that these are going to become more available and reasonable, so we can actually check it. But here's just a bit of a diagram that can help you understand the different types of degenerative diseases versus age and how they increase along this red line with age. So arterial sclerosis, so that's what's going on in our blood vessels. Joint degeneration, how much osteoarthritis we have, circulatory issues, and this is where the blood pressure and coronary artery disease, and then the brain, the aging of the brain, degenerative diseases, cognitive dysfunction, dementia, and of course the biggest one that we're looking at these days is Alzheimer's. And it's been shown that there are ways to even reverse Alzheimer's. That's not many people know that they're starting to, through very intensive programs affecting that epigenetic, the lifestyle factors, they are actually able to reverse Alzheimer's. And then there's metabolic disease. This is where obesity and diabetes, high blood sugar levels all fall, and skin. And this is not just skin cancers, but wrinkles, just these sunspots or liver spots, all those different skin conditions, inflammation in the skin, and eye diseases. So age-related macular degeneration, of course, is the biggest one of all those, but there are a number of others like glaucoma, macular degeneration, glaucoma and cataracts. Okay, let's take a look now at what negatively influences and creates those degenerative diseases. So first of all, it's low quality nutritional intake. So eating these type of fast foods, and then impaired digestion, which usually goes hand in hand when you eat a diet for decades of these type of foods. You're going to cause digestive issues, have low stomach acid, have irritation, leaky gut, and therefore not going to even get the nutrition that you are taking in. Antioxidant poor diet. So we need to have veggies, greens, berries, especially dark colors, to create an antioxidant rich diet. And we're going to look at why we need that. And the last but not least from our is when people from our diet, looking at our diet is when individuals have a poor supply of alkaline minerals and buffers. And again, these are coming from our veggies, greens, berries. We need to have this variety in color. Other factors that are going to negatively influence is high levels of stress, especially long-term chronic stress and poor quality sleep, exposure to environmental toxins and other toxins. Might not just be from the environment, might be in your water, in your food. Lack of physical activity and exercise. There's a balance needed with exercise, but it's movement and exercise is definitely something we can't leave out. Heavy consumption of alcohol and lack of sunlight. Now, the lack of sunlight is interesting because it's not just for vitamin D, thinking, oh, I'm not getting in the sun, so I'll take my vitamin D. There's so much more from exposure to the full rays of our sun, even in the shade. So getting out is an important factor, and we're negatively influenced if we don't do that. Now we're going to move into really what are the mechanics of what's going on. I'm going to introduce you to some new terms here that you might not have heard of, like senescence and senescent cell theory. So first of all, senescence comes from a Latin word senec, which means old. And that's where senile is derived from. So it refers to the process of growing old. But then if we apply it to biology, it's cellular senescence is what we really need to look at. What's going on with each individual cell in our body? And so cellular senescence is the process of cellular aging, where cells stop reproducing. That means they don't divide through the nucleus and become true healthy cells. They no longer function optimally. And most important of all, they resist dying. So they don't leave, or they hang around. So as they hang around, and with age, we tend to have more and more of these cells hanging around, and they reach a critical level of damage and dysfunction. And within that damage and dysfunction, when they're in that stage, they produce a release of harmful substances. We're going to look at these harmful substances. Let's look at this particular cell, and you can see how mottled it is. It's not a healthy cell. And here's our mitochondria, which we're going to go into a bit more about that. Here are the inflammatory substances that are cytokines, actually, that are produced. And they create, when they're released out of the cell, either like this or over here from different parts of the cell, they cause inflammation. So senescent cells produce a variety of these inflammatory or cytokines that can cause this issue. They're pro-inflammation, but they also produce free radical damage. And because they've got damaged and dysfunctional parts in the cell, often they are missing electrons and they're free radicals themselves, which then can be released and do more damage as they get into the bloodstream. Now we're going to take a look at these free radicals that's going on with this aging cell and the oxidative stress caused by them and how they affect aging. But first, before I give you the text on this, I wanted to move over just to look at a healthy mitochondria. For those of you who are not too familiar with the setup within a cell, cells have many of these little furnaces called mitochondria. And these mitochondria, when they're healthy, are producing 95% of our energy currency, ATP. So we need healthy mitochondria, and sometimes, depending on the type of cells, like nerve cells, heart cells that are really highly active, we need thousands of these. There are more than hundreds in most cells, and it's over 1,000 at least. And they're little tiny within every cell. So these healthy mitochondria, when they're affected by free radicals, and in this case, they're called reactive oxygen species. I'll show you that more, but these are the type of free radicals that are often produced even within the mitochondria. They then can end up destroying it if we don't have enough antioxidants and have the ability to neutralize them. So when mitochondria are destroyed or dysfunctioned, this is what I'm going to look at right now. So cells rely on oxygen, and oxygen is definitely a part of producing the energy through these little mitochondrial furnaces. And in turn, they just naturally, just like any furnace, they produce a byproduct. And in this case, it's free radicals called ROSs, or reactive oxygen species. You're going to see this term for free radical damage more and more. So these free radicals are not just found in the mitochondria, but they're very prevalent in the mitochondria. And when they're overproduced, and you'll see why they're overproduced, they cause what's known as oxidative stress. And this is the result. So we get damaged mitochondria causing mitochondrial dysfunction. So they can't, either they're totally destroyed or they're kind of limping. They're half-functioning furnaces. So the accumulation of this damage from the ROSs is the primary cause of aging. So that's what's causing cells to be senescent and then produce more free radicals, produce inflammation, and then that gets distributed through the body. So we're going to look a little bit more at that inflammatory process. And whenever you see a star, I have a very strong research article behind that. Every bit of this, basically, I have references for, but I just every once in a while will put a star on it. And mitochondrial dysfunction has been designated as the one reason for accelerated aging and accelerated brain aging as well. So what can we do to decrease these free radicals and improve the health of our mitochondria? So the very first thing is eat an anti-inflammatory diet. Alkaline foods, again, we're back to the veggies, berries, herbs, spices, all of those fit in there. The exercise has been shown to improve mitochondrial function. They can measure that as part of this biological aging. And it also creates more mitochondria, which is called mitochondrial biogenesis. So when you exercise, and we're not looking at extreme exercising, so middle of the road, we'll talk a little more about that. You can get growth and division of these mitochondria, especially in the muscle. Also improving sleep habits. This has been well proven that sleep disorders are prevalent when you have mitochondrial dysfunction. So when you have free radical damage within your mitochondria, you're going to have sleep disorders. And when you take things like coenzyme Q10, just couldn't help but put that in here because it is so valuable for people that have this. They may be low energy during the day, but can't sleep at night. So using coenzyme Q10 can help you during the day with energy, and then it also helps you sleep. So this is such an important field. They've actually are putting a name to it, calling it mitochondrial medicine. So we're going to see more and more of these terms coming up, either mitochondrial dysfunction or mitochondrial medicine. Let's go and look at this inflammation issue. They've got a new name for this one too. It's called inflammaging. And this is a very specific type of inflammation. It's not the same inflammation as when you go skiing and wreck your knee. And then you've got a sore knee, which has a heat and pain and inflammation. This is a type of inflammation that refers to chronic. So it means ongoing, systemic, all through the body, low grade. So no one particular area is the focus, and it can show up anywhere, but it progressively gets worse in the body with age. So it's this different type of inflammation. Now I'm going to show you a diagram and talk about it a bit. Let's look at this senescent cell. So we already know a senescent cell is one that's in trouble. Why is it in trouble? Well, it's an older person. There's been some immune issues affecting it. Stress is affecting it. Being overweight, obese, because just by being obese, you actually have inflammation. Then there's the presence of blood sugar issues or diabetes. Also could be infections that's working. So all of these things can be working against having a healthy cell. And these unhealthy cells are producing inflammatory compounds, which are then affecting us and causing our age-related diseases and eventually potentially death. So we want to go back to looking at how can we stop an overproduction of these senescent cells, these cells that are not functioning, that don't have good mitochondrial function in them, but yet they're not dying. They're there causing us issue with producing free radicals and inflammation. Okay, so what we need to do is to prevent these cells. So we want to either get them removed out of the body, or we want to prevent them from happening and prevent inflammation. I'm going to take one more look at the cell. I haven't brought it up yet because it's quite a diagram here. So first of all, we're now going to look a little deeper at free radicals in the form of the ROSs, the oxidative damage, the breakdown of the cell and the aging. And these ROSs, I've talked about them mostly being produced in the cell, but they can also be produced from outside the cell. So when they are produced, no matter where they're produced, they can damage the DNA in the center of, in the nucleus of the cell. They damage protein, they damage lipids. When you damage a fat, you get rancid fat. And rancidity of fat in the body is not a thing we want, or the brain. And they can damage the mitochondria. Now, before we go into what's going to help this, we're going to look at this cell. Here we go. So here's another view of a cell as we go through aging. And here are some of the external factors that can add to this oxidative stress, these ROSs. It could be microbes. It could be radiation. And the sun's being used here, but I'm thinking of X-rays, just a number of EMFs, a number of different types of radiation that's affecting us. Environmental factors, pollution, being in smoking environments, even being in a nail shop or, any place where there's toxins and not well ventilated. Of course, the type of foods that we're taking in. Now, all of these affect different parts of our cell, but food especially affects the mitochondria. So here's a little mitochondria that produces our energy currency ATP. And remember, it produces the ROSs, and then those can affect the genes inside our cell, or the DNA that make up these genes. So when DNA is damaged, the cell is really in trouble. It can actually turn on processes that can cause more aging and turn off healthy processes. So we really want to protect our DNA, and it's antioxidants that usually would come from our food that's going to cause and give us this protection. But we need to clear out these cells, and there's a process called autophagy. And this is a repair mechanism that the body naturally has, and it helps to extend our life. And I'm going to show you autophagy in a minute, but autophagy as a process of cleaning up cell damage and is also reduced as we age. So we want to find ways to increase our autophagy. And let's go take a look at autophagy first, because this may be a new term for you. First of all, it's the body's way of cleaning out damage and senescent cells. It's a natural process. If we're going to produce these cells, we've got to have a way to get rid of them. So it removes dysfunctional cells, debris, and toxic proteins, and it recycles them, because there are reusable parts that the body can use for repair and regeneration. So this is the best diagram I could come up with to show you. So here is a microphage cell, a cell that's going to grab onto, let's say in this case, mitochondria that are dysfunctional, and it's going to gather them up, put them through its machinery, and push out parts that then can be used to repair and regenerate cells. So this process called autophagy is really important to find ways to increase it and not let it accelerate the loss of autophagy, accelerate as we age. That's what's going to cause a biological aging that is making us older than we really are. So to support autophagy and to reduce and remove senescent cells, here are some of the things that help it. Now, these things that I'm going to show you here, of which I've got 3 of them up, are because they're going to put the cell under a little bit of stress. They're just going to stress the cell a small amount. So adding extra heat, as in a sauna, which helps to cause cellular regeneration and also increases our detoxification pathways. There are many things that sauna do. These are just two that I thought I would show you what the result is as far as supporting removing these senescent cells and supporting autophagy. Also the exercise, so moderate exercise, which includes a mixture of cardio, resistant training, high intensity interval training. So doing a mixture of these, but not just focusing on one and not overdoing it, because if you under-exercise, you're not going to get these cells removed. If you over-exercise, you're going to cause more cell damage. So generally speaking, we want to find a moderate program. And then there's something called caloric restriction. So this is a type of way of either fasting or dieting without malnutrition. So that's really important, because just restricting calories is not really the answer. But doing water fasting 1 day per week, I've started doing that. And it gradually, by just having water and mineral type drinks, no calorie type drinks, including one plain organic coffee, I can go in a water fast. It's amazing what it can do by doing that once a week. Intermittent fasting. This is when you do not eat for between 14 and to 18 hours a day within the 24 hours. So that means that you're only eating between 6 to 10 hours, like you're restricting it. And if you do that, it's gives the body a chance to have a rest from digesting, and it also stimulates autophagy in the body. And if you need to lose weight, well, feed on your fat cells. So water fasting, intermittent fasting, and then diets that are either low carb and or keto. Usually they'll go together. So we're not looking at eating like this. We're looking at eating like this, but restricting and not eating 24/7. Now, there's one other area that's really interesting, and it brings in this caloric restriction, because now what they've discovered are these caloric restriction mimics. So the CRMs, and these are compounds that can induce the same type of effects as caloric restriction does. So what do? They stimulate the autophagy, they reduce the senescent cells, and the biggest area for these are the polyphenols. So polyphenols have been studied because they're natural sources. There are some drugs that are sources of CRMs. We're not going to go into those. And I really feel that there's no unnatural substance, synthetic substance, that doesn't have some drawback. So we're focusing on what we can do naturally through our diet and our supplementation. So Resveratrol. And I think a lot of you will remember that over 10 years ago, this was the first one that was identified. And resveratrol has been studied the most thoroughly, although there are many others. I'm going to bring up some of those for you. So resveratrol definitely has the ability to do that. Now, what I want to look at is how many people are having this kind of food in their regular diet. Not many. Matter of fact, studies have shown that 50% of Canadians eat less than 5 servings of fruit and vegetables per day. And to get these nutrients, we need 10 servings of fruits and vegetables. This might be a 2-serving, a 2-serving salad here. So I wanted to show you this chart. I love this chart because it's Canadian, and it looked at percentages of fruits and vegetables over the years from 2000 to 2008. So I think it's still pretty relevant. And these are the percentages of Canadians eating 5 servings. So of course, we've got men below only 30 to not quite 40% of men. and just over 40 to about 50% of females have over the years. And you'll notice, I think we started to realize that, for example, blueberries were good for an aging brain, to prevent aging in the brain. So we started to take in more fruits and vegetables, but it never really increased. And actually, there's a little bit of decrease happening. And I bet if we had the next 10 years added onto this, we would see even more of a decline, because fast food and empty calorie or empty nutrient food, high calorie food has increased. So you, when you get a copy of this PDF, you can go into the stats. This is a hyperlink for you. So in order to support healthy biological aging, we can add superfoods. So if we think of superfoods as these nutrient-dense foods that are packed with these phytonutrients, that's usually what they're called, grouped together, but they're also known as bioactives. And understanding what these are, I think it is helpful to realize why would you want to eat your spinach, for example. So let's take a look at them in a little more depth. First of all, remember that many of them are the CRMs. So they're going to mimic this caloric restriction. So maybe you're not into fasting, or you don't want to do a keto diet and also do it in a healthy way where you're making sure you're getting all of your fruits and veggies. So when you make sure that you get these phytonutrients or these bioactives, they're going to help you within your diet, especially if your diet is low in them. So let's look at the different classifications of these bioactives and give them some personality and some life. We're going to look at these polyphenols, which I already brought up, and the phenyletic acids as well. They go hand in hand. We're going to look at chlorophyll. These are pigments, and green ones and blue ones called phycocyanins. And then nitrogenous compounds, which means they have nitrogen in them, and like NO3, dietary nitrates, and alkaloids, which also have nitrogen in them. So not all of our bioactives have nitrogen, but there are a group of them that are really helpful, and I'll talk about those. And then there's the glucosinolate. I know this is a big word, but there's so many beautiful compounds within the glucosinolates. Sulforaphane, you might have heard of, indoles. We're going to look at those and just why it's important to make sure that we include these in our diet. The carotenoids, most of us know about those, starting with things like beta-carotene, but there's so many more that produce these reddy, orangey, yellow pigments. And then we also get vitamin minerals from our foods. So what we know is that eating a very colorful diet, isn't this a beautiful example of what we find in our fruits and vegetables? So we know that colorful fruits and vegetables and colorful superfoods can reduce the risk of chronic disease and aging. So that's also been shown. But most Canadians fall short of eating whole foods or superfoods. And if we add superfoods in at least 1 or 2 servings, we're going to pick up some of the shortfall. So color is really important. And as you can see, we focused on color because I'm going to drive this home that we need the colors of the rainbow. And especially dark, very dark, rich ones. So these colors containing these phytonutrients, they're disease preventing, energy restoring, and longevity supporting. So those 3 things alone make us have to think twice about ignoring having that salad, adding in those berries, and getting are superfoods, adding superfoods, because you can actually powerhouse your foods and your smoothies if you add in some extra in the form of superfood powders. So they're going to be calorie restricting mimickers and valuable phytonutrients. We're going to take a look now more deeply into what they do. Now, remember, I gave you all this information about senescent cells and reduced and ROSs, reactive oxygen species. And so superfoods with their bioactive compounds can reduce these ROSs. They can support healthy mitochondrial function. They decrease the effects of inflammation, and they induce autophagy, or removing these senescent cells. All of this is widely supported and well documented. So it isn't just pie in the sky, it's actually been shown. And a good deal of attention has been spent on the polyphenols. So we're going to look at the polyphenols. And the word poly means many, and phenol, this, I just want to give you a bit of chemistry here. This is just the phenol part. And poly means many of these kind of joined together. Sometimes there's 2 or 3, sometimes there's dozens of these all linked together. And this is a benzene ring with a hydroxyl group, and this is called a phenol. So let's take a look at some polyphenols. First of all, they tend to be in a wide range of colors, and we're going to see that, but especially red to dark, really dark, rich purple, almost black, can be the pigments found in fruits and vegetables. But sometimes they appear green because chlorophyll is overlaying the color. And usually those colors are in there as protectants, either from insects, or from over damaging from the sun, but often from not being eaten. So polyphenols have been known to have high anti-senescent activity. So that means that they're going to help kill off these cells. And here are, at this point, I thought, well, it's time to give you some of the really important ones. And it's quercetin, fisetin, resveratrol, and curcumin. So quercetin we find in a lot of our fruits and vegetables, including onions. Fisetin, by the way, is probably one of the newest of these, and we're going to see more of this. And it's high in berries, including strawberries. Strawberries are often, and resveratrol in red wineskin, and of course curcumin in turmeric. So I wanted to bring up one particular type of polyphenol in the black elderberry, the European elderberry. So there's about 900 milligrams per half a cup of these antioxidants. They're antiviral, they're immune modulating, so they bring the balance in the immune system, and they're anti-inflammatory, and they're considered senolytic activity. So they all have this ability to reduce senescent cells, and that's the term used for it. So 900 milligrams per half a cup. But who's eating half a cup a day of elderberries? We're not. So how can we get them? So we can get them in our different powders, different food powders, and also in capsule in this case. And so I'm going to show you a bit more about that. So now I've talked about polyphenols, and I've snuck in here phenyletic acids. And this is really a type of acid that has this phenol group on it. And again, they often fall into the red, the blue, the violet pigments as well. And in just a minute, I'll talk a bit more about those so you can relate to them. So polyphenols have had proven anti-aging. They reduce oxidative stress, they decrease inflammation, they reduce and remove these senescent cells, and they stimulate autophagy. So all that should make sense to you now. If I was to have told you that without my explanation, I'm not sure if it would have made any sense at all. But to me, it's such a basic understanding of why we age and so it's not to me just enough to say, oh, it reduces oxidative stress. There's so much more to it, and so much more along with eating healthy superfoods that we can do. So let's look at some of the ways in which the studies have linked polyphenol-rich diets to health. Okay, so by lowering fasting blood sugar levels, higher glucose intolerance happens, and increased sensitivity to insulin. So that means it's going to help with metabolic syndrome, preventing blood clots, lowering risk of heart disease, often affecting blood pressure, promoting a healthy brain function, improving digestion. And we know the gut-brain connection is so strong. So if it can reduce the inflammation, they can support and reduce inflammation in the gut. It also supports brain and protects against some types of cancers. So I just had to put that in because it's also true. Okay, now these compounds, where are we going to find them? And there's a subclass of the polyphenols called flavonoids, and it's probably the biggest subclass. And it's found in many of our fruits, berries, red cabbage, the color again, kale. So kale is green, but what happens if you leave kale in your fridge too long? It turns yellow because there's where the polyphenols are. Grape skins, parsley, tea, cocoa, coffee even. So when we look at how many of these flavonoids are we getting a day, and they range between 25 to 500. So the people getting the 25 are not getting much of an effect. This is why we have to eat 10 servings of fruits and vegetables a day to get our polyphenols up into the hundreds. Maybe you don't need 500 every day, but you need to have hundreds of milligrams of these polyphenols. So here are examples of the most concentrated ones if you wanted to sort of really super boost your diet and your superfoods, would be to take quercetin. So quercetin helps to reduce the mitochondrial damage. It's been shown to reduce oxidative stress and plaque in arteries. Now we know there's a lot more to quercetin, so I'm just picking up some of the qualities that would fit with our healthy aging properties. So curcuminoids, which are curcumin is the most prominent, give turmeric that dark yellow color. And they're powerful antioxidants, anti-inflammatory agents, yet they're low water solubility, and bioavailability is usually not there unless you ferment them. And also when I take it, I usually will put my fermented turmeric powder into a coffee. I've been able to get now over half a teaspoon in there without tasting it. And I've also got some organic ghee and MCT oil and a bit of pepper. So those help increase you absorb turmeric. Now, we can take curcumin in capsules and we can get very fancy 95% concentrations of them in capsules, and they've done a lot to help this absorbability. But you also need the whole turmeric. And just like with all of these foods, it's really good to have a concentration of all of what we find, not just one type of bioactive. So I encourage people to both go into the broad spectrum of getting the superfoods, and then use turmeric as your anti-inflammatory agent when you have a high level of inflammation in your body, like you do a sprain or strain. So fisetin, the strawberries, apples, grapes, and more, has been known to reduce senescent cells, and it's active against allergies, inflammation, so things like asthma, and it's chemoprotective against lung and cancers, where studies have been showing it. So again, really good idea to get those strawberries in. This is a great season for it. Let's take a look at the phenyletic compounds that I talked about, because they're widely distributed. Now, this term might not mean anything to you, but if we think of a plant that has an acid in it, or actually the bark of a tree, willow bark has salicylic acid. That's a very simple phenyletic acid. It has that phenol structure to it, and it's also very bioactive and healing. It's healing inflammation. So there's a good example. Now, here's another example, and that's ellagic acid, as in pomegranates and many other of our fruits and berries. And ellagic acid has been studied. It regulates the immune system. It decreases specific markers of inflammation, including prostaglandins E2 and leukotriene 6, which is often known as IL-6. And that, just to give you a relation, that's the one that was causing the cytokine storm and the problems with lung issues and lung inflammation in COVID infections. So as a type of cytokine, leukotriene 6, or what's called IL-6. So ellagic acid from pomegranates, and you'll also, find it in many different fruits and vegetables. Let's take a look at another type of polyphenol called anthocyanins. And these are in the very dark purple berries, blueberries, pomegranate, black currants that I've already mentioned to you. And they can prevent and repair cellular damage. They also support heart, brain, eye, and help reduce blood pressure. Resveratrol, which we talked about, is found in grapes, especially the grape skin, and in berries. Mind you, with especially resveratrol, you need more quantities than what you could get from drinking red wine. So it's like you'd have to have like 100 glasses of red wine a day to get enough. So we don't want to think about switching that. It's the wine that's going to be the help. Although if you were including a glass of red wine along with all of your other polyphenols, probably not a bad idea. So studies are showing that's improving the brain mitochondrial function, and there's many studies in the longevity models. It introduces autophagy by destroying those senescent cells. It protects against type 2 diabetes, heart disease, and Alzheimer's. So there's been just amazing results from that. And now I want to show you the Prairie Naturals Superfood Powders that fall into the class of having polyphenols and these phenyletic acids. So maca has them, turmeric has them, our red superfoods, which is based in as far as the berries go, pomegranate, and there's a wide variety of the berries in there. Our superfood blend, which is a green superfood blend, but chocked full wheatgrass and barley grass and all of those, and kale is in here. So you get a lot of polyphenols. And then we can't leave out moringa. Moringa is very high in polyphenols. Now, I just want to add in the other ones that Prairie have that I think are so important with polyphenols and phenyletic acids, and that's the resveratrol compound, which has grape seed skin and other polyphenols beyond resveratrol in it, and the black elderberry fruit extract, which is a 15-to-1, 500 milligrams of a 15-to-1. So you're just in one capsule a day, you're getting a truckload of the polyphenols in there. And then quercetin. with a 500 milligram. So these three are ones that one might want to add along with superfoods, or if you're going to be traveling and very difficult to do your superfood powders. Let's move on and take a look at chlorophyll and phycocyanin as two pigments. So the chlorophyll is green. By the way, chlorella is our highest source of chlorophyll. And chlorophyll, even though we think about it as a detoxifying agent or something that takes away odor, it reduces oxidative stress, it reduces inflammation, and it's chemoprotective. And there's been studies explaining its anti-aging effects. So we find it in green leafy vegetables, alfalfa, wheatgrass, but really chlorella and spirulina. So it's highest in chlorella, but it's also found in spirulina, which is sometimes called blue-green algae. Really, it's a cyanobacterium. And it doesn't have as much chlorophyll, even though it's kind of this dark blue color, but it has a high amount of this blue pigment, which is one of the very few places we find it, called phycocyanin. And I can't underestimate how important phycocyanin is. And there's a very high percentage in Prairie Naturals spirulina powder because it's very protective for the liver. As a matter of fact, I wanted to do more on it because I think it's so important. It's an anti-carcinogenic agent, especially studies against breast endocarcinomas and human melanoma cells. So it's quite protective. It inhibits the growth of certain breast cell cancers, causes cell death. Now, cell death as a process is called apoptosis. Autophagy is a system in the body that actually helps cells to be removed, causes cell death. Apoptosis. I just stuck that in there just so if that term comes up in your reading, it won't be unfamiliar to you. Here's where I love phycocyanin for, and make sure I take it every day in a spirulina. I actually add it in my morning alkalizing drink because chlorella and spirulina are so valuable for alkalizing as well. But it protects the liver. It supports these enzymes, these superoxidase dismutase and glutathione. It decreases the amount of these free radicals in the liver. So it's really liver protectant. That's one of the keys that I see to phycocyanin is this is the one to help the liver. Here's the prairie line where you're going to find chlorophyll and phycocyanin. It's going to be in the aquagreens, which is 50-50, and the spirulina. And that's where the phycocyanin will be, along with there's some in the superfood blend, and the rest really is providing us with chlorophyll in this case. Okay, let's move on. And take a look at the nitrogenous or the nitrogen-based compounds. So first of all, we're going to look at them in the form of dietary nitrates, because dietary nitrates can be converted to nitric oxide, which is a little tiny molecule in the body that does many things. It can zip around, it acts very quickly, but where it really works is benefiting by increasing blood flow. It affects the inside walls of our blood supply, our circulatory system, and it's all over great for the cardiovascular system. It reduces blood pressure and increases physical vitality. It's used by people with exercise to increase endurance and performance, better muscle recovery, usually found in a supplement. Usually people would go to beet juice or beet powder to get concentrated amounts. Food sources arugula, and collards. There's huge food sources of it, but you have to eat quite a bit compared to doing beets. So the other alkaloids that are found in this group of phytonutrients are betalains. And these are when you don't have polyphenols for color, it could be the betalains, and they provide this yellow to violet pigment. And amaranth, the amaranth plants can come in all these variety of colors, and that's due to these betalains. And they're highly antioxidant, and they inhibit lipid peroxidation. What that means is they prevent rancid fat, or fat from going rancid, and prevent DNA damage. Remember, our brain is 60% fat by dry weight, so really good for the brain. They support this phase 2 detoxification pathway. They help eliminate toxins, molecules that when they go into detoxification, often become more toxic, and then you need to excrete them. So betalains, which are found in those same foods that I showed you, and also betaine. Betaine's high in beets, and it's really valuable for lowering the inflammatory compound homocysteine, and it's helping to methylate and go back to methionine. So both of these are and beets are really one of our highest sources of this combination. Okay, let's take a look at foods that you're going to find these nitrogenous compounds. Maca, the macamides are really in there. In red foods, because this has got the highest concentration is in the beet in here. In kale, you'll find them, and also in Prairie Naturals Superfood Blend. I'd like to talk about the glucosinolates, and this is the one that I thought most people would be unfamiliar with, this particular term. It's a broad term which have the sulforaphanes and the indoles in it, and it's found in their cruciferous vegetables, and that's why it's so important to mention. Like, it's highest, actually sulforaphanes highest in broccoli sprouts, but they're found in the cabbage, the kale, also maca. This is maca here to give you, and moringa. Here's your moringa leaves. So they also have these, and they treat neurodegenerative diseases. They also really help the liver and produce glutathione, this master antioxidant. So let's just quickly look at the two classifications. So the sulforaphane, this is what creates, when you chomp into raw cabbage and it kind of feels sharp and bittery. It's part of this brassica or cruciferous vegetable family, and mustard seed's also there in that category. They've been known to treat diabetes, to lower blood sugar levels, to improve autophagy, lower inflammation, reduce damage from the ROSs by as much as 73%. And that's when you work with sulforaphane. So just amazing that what we can find in our cruciferous vegetables, and why it's really important to bring this big classification in to your diet. Now, the indoles, a lot of people will know them as I3C or DIM. They're antioxidant, they're anti-cancer, carcinogenic, especially for estrogen-sensitive cancers. So you often find them in women's formulas. They boost the liver, they help detoxify the liver, but they also block toxic estrogens, and they modulate estrogen. So we often see them in those formulas, but you can find them in these by eating these superfoods and vegetables with them in. So let's move on and take and look at where Prairie has. So maca is going to have it, red foods, kale, and moringa. The last class before the vitamins and minerals are beta-carotene. And most people know beta-carotene and the carotenoids, but it's really the lutein and zeaxanthin that we find in our, it's sort of in the orange-yellow colors. And they're really important for the eyes because they absorb the blue light and they protect the photoreceptors. And because we're on screens and in blue light all the time, they get used up. So you have to continually be taking zeaxanthin and lutein. And another great one of these fat-soluble antioxidant is astaxanthin. And it's actually in reducing free radicals in the eye. It can be 3 times stronger. It's also a really good anti-inflammatory agent. I know my time is short, so I want to just move on, show you where you'll find carotenoids in the Prairie Naturals products, along with we have an astaxanthin plus lutein and zeaxanthin with 4 milligrams of astaxanthin per capsule if you really want to get that one for eye protection and more. Vitamins and minerals, they are going to be in your superfoods along with your all those bioactive phytonutrients. But you're especially going to get vitamin C and folate, not folic acid, but natural folate, and methyl B12, which is a natural form, and also magnesium. This is probably the mineral that we're most needing in our body and and really don't get enough of. Zinc also, it's incredibly important for our immune system, metabolic function, and all over longevity. So we find these vitamins and minerals in our superfoods and our foods. I'd just like to bring up alkaline minerals, because this really helps boost alkalinity in the body by getting superfoods and mineral salts. And how does alkalinity tie into aging? And that is that if we're acidic, if we're not getting enough of these alkaline minerals, we have impaired energy production, fluid accumulation and edema, and increased free radical production. So those are 3 well-studied areas that show that help when you eat an alkaline diet. And of course, you can use pH paper to make sure that you're alkaline. These are the different foods that I've chosen for the high vitamin mineral content and alkalinity. Morning Rise in China is added here because of its combination of alkalizing along with lemon and aloe. The red superfoods, the alfalfa, and of course we can't leave out moringa because it has lots of vitamins. It often is called your natural vitamin and mineral. Just wanted to touch on superfoods. And all I'll say is that when you take superfoods and ferment them, you pre-digest them. And for people who have poor digestion, poor ability to absorb, it really increases and can increase your bioactive compounds by quite a bit. And I'd like to end by just giving you 11 reasons why I think we should add superfoods to our diet. So to help reduce oxidative stress, prevent rancidity in the body, remember with the fats, protects against cellular health, predicts cellular health on the mitochondria level, supports the heart and brain function, promotes eye health, encourages the gut microbacteria. Lots of times they act as prebiotics as well. So they'll feed the natural bacteria. Support the immune system, they reduce inflammation, detoxify and promote healthy pH, energize and boost stamina. And last but not least, the reason why we put this together is because they can slow aging. So I'd like to thank you very much for joining us. I will just give you the list of how Prairie Natural has gone above and beyond to make sure that you don't have any of the added issues that you would have and might find in some foods, and how we've gone to great extents for it to be non-GMO, gluten-free, organic, and very antioxidant rich. So I'd like to thank you. We're just a couple of minutes over. And I just like to say that you can connect to Prairie Naturals. When you get this, there'll be some hyperlinks, and also to me if you have any interest in looking me up. So thank you again very much. I hear we probably have some questions. I'm going to end the slideshow right now. And
I do have some questions for you, RoseMarie, so I can ask you those. Yeah. So our first question, we have about 22 questions. So.
Okay, let's see if we can bang them out quickly here.
Okay. What kind of sauna do you recommend? Wet, dry, or infrared?
Wow. Okay. So most of the work has been done on Finnish as in Finland saunas. That's who's done most of the work. So I honestly am still up in the air about that. I would look up Dr. Rhonda Patrick. Dr. Rhonda Patrick did her PhD on saunas and has written about it, and you can pick her up on YouTube, and you'll get really good information from her. She's done lots of interviews. So I honestly am still up in the air about it because I think they're all good, but which is going to give us the best support for aging, the jury's out for me yet.
What are your thoughts on the influx of mitochondrial supplements flooding the market now, such as MitoPure, that claims to unlock the molecule urolithin A? Do these supplements really work, or are they a bit of a gimmick?
You know, honestly, I would have to look up MitoPure. It was MitoPure, right, Jennifer?
It is,
right?
Yeah.
If that person wants to give me, I'd love to look that up for you. If you want to give us a way to connect to you, I'll get back to you on that, because that's a question that I can't answer, but I would be able to once I take a look at it.
So I will get the information. That was with Greg Ross, and he actually has a couple questions for you. So I'm going to let you work directly with him on those. So Greg, if you want to just send in the chat, put your email address, we'll work directly with you on your questions.
Yeah, I look forward to it, Greg. Thank you.
What food and supplements would help with insomnia?
Wow. Well, if you wanted to know a product, like, first of all, we really need to get that melatonin in there, and not just for sleep, but for example, food-wise, that would be sour cherries. Sour cherries, you can even use sour cherry juice to get melatonin, or you could go to a supplement. I'm going to refer you to a supplement that I love, and that's Prairie Naturals has a liquid sleep solution with pharma-GABA in it and 5-HTP and melatonin. It's a really good supplement to take at night. And often you need to stack your herbs or nutrients to support sleep. But often one doesn't work, but I always make sure that I take a melatonin. And it isn't so much for sleep as much as the circadian rhythms. It's anti-cancer. It has so many properties to it.
So this person is asking, does it matter what time one goes to bed as long as the person has 7 hours of sleep consistently? They're claiming to go to bed at 3:30 in the morning.
Well, I don't know if most sleep experts would agree with 3:30 in the morning, although if your circadian rhythm is set up that way, you know, there are uniquenesses within our humans. Generally speaking, there are the people that are early birds that get up earlier, like go to bed earlier, later in the middle, and some even night owls. But to me, that's a bit of a stretch unless you have a unique situation. So I can't comment on 3:30. Generally speaking, we produce more melatonin when it gets dark, right? So we're in a natural circadian rhythm, but you might have a unique one. So if it's working for you, all the better to you, right? But it would actually if you did your biological aging, that would be maybe one of the ways you would need to know for sure.
Organic fruit and veggies are pricey. Is it okay to wash non-organic food in those veggie and fruit washes, or what is the best way to wash out the pesticides?
Sometimes the pesticides are put on when things are in bloom and they're incorporated right in it. So I definitely do that process, even with my organic stuff that's traveled. To me, it would, especially since we're in summer, is to go to farmers markets as opposed to eating from a conventional produce section that's bringing in a lot of stuff from the States, or to grow your own. I know it's not easy. It's a really tough go. It's not, there's no easy solution to that. Definitely use the veggie wash, but that is more for what's on the surface. We can't get out what's in it. So if you did some form of the intermittent fasting, or 1 day water fasting, and so you reduced, unless you're really skinny and totally under fat in your body, it's good for all of us to do that. And that's a way you can cut back, eat good quality when you're eating, and then don't eat as much. And I think a lot of us are going to be looking at that come over these next couple of years.
Is there something that you can eat to substitute for the nutrients found in strawberries if you are allergic to them?
I think Fisetin, a matter of fact, I've been urging Prairie to look at Fisetin to get that particular nutrient, because it's available, but not readily yet. So keep an eye out. I think you'll see it coming in supplement form, so that you can get that one that's high in strawberries, and then pick up with your other superfoods and other foods you can eat.
I have somebody asking, when you talked about tea being a source of polyphenols, is green tea a good source?
Yes, but all the teas are, but green tea would probably top the list. Yeah, especially matcha. All right, matcha powder. I'm able to get about a half a teaspoon of matcha powder, organic matcha powder, in my coffee in the morning. So I chalk my coffee full. Oftentimes it has maca in it. It'll have cinnamon, real true cinnamon. It will have the turmeric. I get lots in there.
My understanding is that you're not supposed to take elderberry on a regular basis. Is that correct?
No. I'm thinking that you might be tied into the older information that came out that was incorrect, where it was saying it could add to a cytokine storm in the body. I don't know if I would necessarily always take elderberry or take it in her. I keep it so that if I feel a little bit run down and I want to supercharge my body, then I would take 1 or 2 capsules a day of the elderberry. I've often bought organic elderberries and have made an elderberry syrup, non-sugar based, as well, and have used it. So I think that that's probably coming from that information that came out early COVID days that was not correct.
Some medications can have long-term effects to the kidneys. What would you recommend to offset this damage?
Not take the medication. Sorry. Even though I practiced pharmacy for 25 years, whenever you can avoid, especially the NSAIDs or these anti-inflammatory drugs like ibuprofen, Motrin, Aleve, and all those. But if it is necessary to take drugs, then what you want to do is make sure that that your urine is alkaline, because drugs make us acidic. And if your diet is not accommodating and giving you enough alkaline minerals, you're putting extra strain on your kidneys. So to help, and when the body excretes acids, those acids are hard on all the tubules and all of the urinary tract inner lining, causing issues. So the very first thing would be to make sure that you're always alkaline. If you want more information, if you go to the Prairie Naturals website and go under alkalinity, I've got information there that you can pick up. You can pick it up from my website. We even have an alkaline food chart for you and more information on how to alkalize your body. And of course, the superfoods and Morning Rise and Shine with lemon, aloe, and minerals are a great way to support that diet, that healthy alkaline diet. But that's the very first. If you talk to kidney specialists like Dr. Frassetto, she says that most people have metabolic acidosis in North America because of this very poor diet. And she's a kidney specialist, and it's directly affecting our kidney function. So sorry being flippant at the beginning of that, but there's a maybe more healthy and helpful answer for you.
What superfoods would you recommend to take for chronic bronchitis?
I don't know if I would directly attach a superfood to a condition like that. All of these superfoods are basically anti-inflammatory and antioxidant. So there isn't one, but just let me think. Where I would go is look up perilla and look up the different herbs that you'll find perilla, like rosemary. Because perilla is found in the mint family, Perilla, I think perilla. That's most likely your best place, is to, because they have specific properties for the respiratory tract. That's what off the top of my head that comes to me, is to go to perilla. And if you're looking for a combination, a herbal combination for the respiratory tract, take a look. Prairie has a wonderful product that we put together some years ago and then brought back because of the amount of lung conditions that we're having, and smoke issues, and people with breathing problems. And it's called Respar Solution. And it has those herbs in it that contain the perilla, along with a lot of other anti-inflammatory and soothing herbs. So Respar, R-E-S-P-I-R solution, and is again in a liquid form, so very easily absorbable. I also talked about the sleep solution, which is in the Prairie Naturals liquid line. Those are two that are always in my cupboard.
If you were to introduce some superfood powders, which would be the best to start with?
Where are you going to put them? like what would be your best way? For me, as I do an alkalizing drink in the morning. So I base it on Morning Rise and Shine. So I've got that lemon, aloe, and mineral combination. And then I will add things like our superfood green powder and our superfood red. So you can do that, but given that I have such access to these, I love the aqua greens. It's just the aqua greens. It's not as easy to get spirulina and chlorella, which that's what is combined in there, into, let's say, Morning Rise and Shine, which tastes great. It's a nice fresh lemon taste made with real lemon. It's got the juice of half a lemon in each container. So if you were to add, let's say you went into aqua greens, which would give you chlorella and spirulina, you might just want to add a bit of, say, stevia drops to that, something just to and then you could. Otherwise, I blend them. So I'll blend them. The other one would be moringa. But remember that the chlorella is really highest in chlorophyll, and the spirulina is highest in this blue-green phycocyanin, which you really can't get easily. We do not have even many pure extracted supplements of that, but it's very high in good quality spirulina. So I don't know if that helps. If you were doing a drink, if you're doing a smoothie, you could still do the same thing and bury them easier. I just find that a really rich alkalizing drink, and often what I'll do is I'll put it in, if my husband and I make it, we put it in at least 2 cups of water, and I'll start to drink it and I'll just keep adding more water to it because it's punchy when you get all those greens in there. So to me, if I was to simplify that, it'd be morning rise and shine as a base, reds and green superfoods added to it, or if you don't mind taste and you can kind of sweeten it up yourself, go to the aqua greens.
I have, is a green powder or supplement recommended every day?
Depending if you're getting enough of if you think you're getting enough of your fruits and vegetables. If you're up to those 10 servings, no. If you're able to do it through a large amount of salads and you're able to get a wide variety. But if you're not, then you can substitute by adding in.
So I just have one more question here, RoseMarie, and then there's a few questions from Greg that I'm going to connect you guys via email to go through. But so the last question is going to be, I had my gallbladder out and I've been told to have all my vegetables steamed and not too much raw salad. Difficult to get the 10 servings. Which green product would you suggest?
With your liver out, with your gallbladder out, sorry about that. What you want to make sure is that you have those glucosinolates, so the brassicas, and of course you want to cook the brassicas, except for broccoli sprouts. You want to cook the brassicas anyway, so cooking them works fairly well, and there's so many of them within the bok choys and all the different varieties, even mustard seed. That's why I put it in there. Great to add and put on with ghee on steamed. Just steam them till they're still a little crunchy. So that was one part of the question. And the other part was, so they're very good for detoxifying the liver, and also the especially the spirulina, but a combo of the spirulina and chlorella, which is in Prairie called aqua greens. It's a 50-50, or go directly to the spirulina with a high blue-green algae, that blue phycocyanin pigment in it. That's what I would do for supporting the liver with superfoods. Is that it?
That's all of them for now, yes.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, well, I'd like to thank you very much. I'd like to thank Healthy Planet for giving us the opportunity to share our wonderful superfood line and our interest in showing how superfoods can be so advantageous for your health, that they can improve our lifespan and not only make us live longer, but keep us healthier. We want to be healthy and happy. By the way, I should just tell you, I've been doing this for over 50 years. I'm now in my 70s and I'm nowhere near slowing down, as Jennifer will tell you. So thank you, Jen. Thank you, Healthy Planet. I guess we'll call it a night. Jennifer, we're good? Looks like we are. Okay, I'm going to end the meet. Oops. We're good?
We're good. Yeah.
Okay. Night, everyone.